Dr. Kathy McFarland.
And I'm Mark Bobo, and welcome to the OSBA Forum. Kathy, it is fall time.
It is fall time. I cannot believe we've been through or coming up to homecoming.
Right.
We got Friday night football games going on, fall sports going on. I feel like we just got out of the first week of school.
The trees are beautiful. Where I'm at now, my trees are turning. It's this nice orange color, and but of course that leaves leaves all over the property as well. So that's work to do, but it's all good.
I do want to do a little reminder. I was walking my dog this morning at 6:35 a.m. as the school bus pulls into my neighborhood, and it is dark out now in the morning. Please, please, please be very careful as our kiddos are getting picked up early in the morning, and some of them actually are coming home in the evening and dark from their sports and stuff. So just always be aware that our kids are coming and going because we want them to be involved in school, so they're doing that. So.
When that stop sign comes out, it's for both lanes. Everybody stops.
Everybody stops.
Everybody stops. But as always, we're glad to have the OSBA Forum here today, and always our intention is to make sure that you are informed of the happenings that are happening, the happenings in public education. So today's discussion pertains to the importance of collaboration between K-12 and higher education. As educational leaders, we're always looking for opportunities that our students can have that can lead to life-changing impact for them and the communities in which they live. And today we have a special guest that will provide insight about how those opportunities are happening right here in the state of Ohio. Kathy, who do we have with us today?
Yep, thanks, Mark. A special guest indeed and a personal friend of mine, Dr. Keith Bell. Dr. Bell is the Director of Leadership Services at the Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio. Additionally, he is the facilitator of the Ohio State Student Leadership Research Collaborative in partnership with the OSU College of Education and Human Ecology. He is an instructional coach for advancing inclusive principal leadership through the University of Cincinnati and works with Cleveland State University and the Department of Urban Education to support the school-based Youth Participatory Action Research Initiative.
Boom.
That's a lot. Dr. Bell has been a head basketball coach, a teacher, a principal, and a superintendent at Euclid City Schools prior to joining the ESC, and he received his doctorate from The Ohio State University. Dr. Bell, welcome to OSBA.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Glad to have you.
Mark and I were really excited about this because it has to do with students, and we love it when we find out opportunities that our board members can get into conversation and get involved with what's going on with our students. So, Dr. Bell, tell us how you got the idea for the OSU Student Leadership Research Collaborative.
Sure. When I was in Cleveland, as I ended my career, we were developing our strategic plan. And what we were looking at is we looked at how we could bring EMIS directors together, how we could bring superintendents together, how we could bring assistant principals together and all of that. And I said, what about kids? Why can't we bring kids together? But we didn't really know what we wanted to do. So I left there and went to Ohio State. And in the interim, what we looked at is a way to try to connect kids. So we started the First Ring Student Leadership Institute in Cleveland. And what that was were the 16 schools along with Cleveland that surrounded Cleveland Metropolitan, and developed a leadership academy and all of that in Cleveland. So for 2 years, we did that. After I finished in Euclid, we did that for 2 years, and we had that going, and everything was fine. Then the pandemic hit. So the pandemic hits in 2020, and the superintendents that year, and I can understand it, didn't really want to be involved with that because there was too many other things on their plate. So all of a sudden, there's nothing. And I said, I've always loved challenges. So I said, you know, that might be a good time to maybe possibly bring this to Central Ohio. And so I got the idea to bring this to Central Ohio. So I talked to folks at Ohio State. I talked to the ESC, Tom Goodney, who's been an excellent partner at the ESC. Talked to those folks about the possibility of making this happen. Wrote the grant to Martha Holding Jennings, who's been a funder for us for the last 4 years, about this idea. And everyone asked me, so how are you going to get this to happen in the middle of the pandemic? And I said, I don't know, but it's going to happen. It has to happen. Because what gave me the idea was during that time, if you recall, the George Floyd incident had occurred, all of the social justice issues were occurring. I went out, I live in Gahanna, I went out into the community, all the high school kids were protesting. You know, they were all in the corners and everything. So I went out and asked them, I said, you all are protesting, and, you know, I see that, you know, you don't like what you see. I said, tell me how you're going to change things. Tell me what you want to do. Tell me how I can help you change things. No one had an answer. They couldn't tell me anything. I said, this is an opportunity. This is an educational opportunity. I said, these kids need some guidance, all of that. Long story short, that gave me the idea to say this needs to happen in Central Ohio. And so in the middle of the pandemic, let's just make it as tough as we can make it. So in the middle of the pandemic, the first year, everything was virtual. 7 sessions, all virtual. I got through the Educational Service Center, I was able to have access with the curriculum directors in Central Ohio. And as a result of that, the message got out. And so we had about 75 kids. We had 16 different schools that participated. It was all virtual. And we developed them in leadership, advocacy, but the most important component was the research component, teaching them the quantitative and qualitative research, because what kids will do, and I knew this, and you know this too, Kathy, in schools, kids will have ideas, they want certain things to happen, but they don't have any evidence to back up what they're saying. You know, they say, hey, you know, Mr. Bell, this is wrong. You know, I know this is wrong. And I say, okay, it's wrong, so what do you want to do about it? I don't really know. And then how do you know that everybody else, other people think it's wrong? Well, I don't know. So we wanted to teach them how to say, if it's wrong, then have something to support that, have data to back that up. And so the Leadership Research Collaborative, which was the name that I just kind of looked at, I said, we're gonna collaborate with them, we're gonna teach them research, we wanted them to have leadership, that whole opportunity, we wanted to make sure that happened. So the leadership component, make sure we had top-level leaders that spoke, that we taught them about how to become an informed, educated advocate, but then we gave them the opportunity and the educational component to have research to back up what they were saying and have data and evidence to support that. And so that's kind of where the idea came from, and being able to give them, I think the last part of that is, for me, I've always been an advocate for student voice. And my default behavior as an administrator was to go ask kids when I didn't know what to do.
Right.
You know, go talk to them, go ask them, get their opinion. And not only get their opinion, but make sure that they felt like they were empowered, not necessarily engaged, but empowered. That means that they can actually do something. Yeah. And I wanted them to have that. So those are just some of the things that drove this for me, because being in education, when you have an opportunity and it's knocking you right upside your head, you got to go in and do what you got to do, because that's what was happening to me. Right. Go do something. Right. You're asking these kids about this, go do something. And that's what I wanted to do.
You know, it's so interesting, Mark. We talked about this at just our leadership meeting this morning, how important it is to not just say something, to see what the research, what's the data, and come with solution-based information when you come to the table. So it's great that these kids are getting an opportunity to do these leadership skills.
You know, I was sitting here as you were speaking. You know, my son had the opportunity to go through the collaborative this year, and I can't thank you enough for that opportunity for him. And he came home really drilled down and saying, you know, Dad, Pop, he said, I really got to have the research behind what I'm saying. Yeah. I believe in what I'm doing, but I got to have that data behind me. So I know that was an outcome for my son. But overall, what are the intended outcomes for the collaborative, and how do you know it's working? Yeah,
great question. The intended outcome is for the kids to be able to have skills in leadership, advocacy, and research. And it's very easy to measure, because at the end of the year, the kids will do just like they would be doing if they were in graduate school. You know, Kathy, how this works. In graduate schools, they do an oral presentation, and they actually do a research, they have a research poster where they have to explain their findings from the problem. So what happens is they identify a problem in school. It could be anything from bullying, anything that they think is a problem. And then they will conduct research on that particular problem. And once they find the information from that problem, then they have to then report their findings, and we teach them how to do that. But they've got to actually present their findings and get people to understand why this is something that should be considered for change in their school. It's all about making change. And oftentimes what happens is, through their research, they find out there really wasn't a problem. Yeah. That's happened over in a couple situations. And I remember a group from down in Southeast Ohio, because we have Southeast Ohio schools and Central Ohio schools involved. So we have rural, because they don't get this opportunity. And so they come in and they were going through it, and they said, as we went through it, we thought that the kids didn't like this. We found out they did. Yeah. And so they were able to, to do that. So really being able to become a better leader, understand how to become a better advocate, but the measurement, the metric to measure it is when they get to the end and they actually do their research. Their poster has data to support what it is that they're doing. You can see what they've done. They've got their quantitative and qualitative methodology down. They understand, and they're able to present it in a way that folks don't realize they're just in high school. We had a middle school team that you would have never known was a middle school team because of how succinct and how direct they were with their data. So those are the measurements. And then, you know, for me personally, kids have fun.
Yeah.
You know, you can have fun doing the work.
Right.
And I want them to have fun as they go through this whole process. And they've been able to do that, and I've enjoyed watching them grow. But those are the metrics.
So this was shared with me, and in it has the research questions. And it's really great questions about bullying, mental health. You know, there's some really good things in here that I think sometimes adults, I don't know if they know how to ask it or how they need to get a hold of this information. That's why I was so excited to bring Dr. Bell in today, because I think right now it seems like board members are really talking about getting student voice. It's one thing to sit at a table and make decisions for students. It's another to say, hey, maybe we should ask them. Like, maybe we should get their voice. And I love the fact that you also pointed out that sometimes you think you know the answer, and then you do the research and you say, oh, that's not what the data says.
Yeah.
So, okay, is it me or you?
Well, I was going to ask,
Yeah.
you spoke about some of the projects that, you know, ended up being not really an issue. Can you share with some of the projects that had some research and impact on the community?
Oh, several. I could be here all night, but let me give you a couple that really stood out for me. So in the middle of the pandemic, we had one, Westerville South, that did a study on, they called it adulting. What they found out is that kids did not have the skills in order to understand about how to write checks, how to live on their own and all that. And they wanted to have a class at Westerville called adulting. And so the kids, you have to understand, this was in 2020, this is in the middle of the pandemic. And they did all of their survey information through text messages and social media and all of that. They got 500 and something responses. And what they found out was that they wanted to have a course called adulting. And when they actually talked about, got the survey out about who would enter the course, they had so many that John Kellogg said, I don't know what you've done to these kids, but they got all this information. And they went to the board to present this adulting course to the Board of Education. So they made some changes and looked at that because this is something that they wanted to do. The other one that stands out is Bexley a year ago talked about, they did a study on the impact of the pandemic, not only on students, but on teachers. And what they found out was that in Bexley that year, 77% of the teachers were considering leaving the profession. And they presented up at Ohio State on this whole piece. And I can see the team sitting there talking about that and everybody looking stunned. And they had the data to support. They were considering that. And so as a result, they made some changes, and I give Jason a lot of credit at Bexley. You know, they've done some things to address an issue that was brought to the table by students. And so they've actually done that. Chesapeake High School was a part of this, testified at the State House last year on fair school funding. And they talked about the things that they learned in the collaborative, but they talked about the fact that they're at a school where they don't get the resources, they don't get the opportunities like we do here to have this. They wanted to have some of those same opportunities, and they talked about the gaps that they had in the things that they were doing. So that was something that was really significant. The final one is St. Charles. St. Charles was looked at their testing, and they wanted to find out about retention and why in certain cases kids didn't come back to St. Charles. So they did research on it, and they found out about the testing atmosphere and all of what went into it. As a result, they got them to hire 2 staff members and set up a testing lab, and they also came up with the agreement that no student would have more than 1 test in a day.
Nice.
That all came from student survey, documentation, and information that they got from the student team that did and when they presented all of this, they talked about the significance that it's made. And they told me they wanted me to come out and see. So I went out and actually looked at the lab and the staff members, and I mean, it really was significant. And the one student who led that is now at Notre Dame.
Oh, nice.
Andrew Hoffman is now at Notre Dame, and he's going to be one of my speakers, which is now I'm bringing those students back to actually talk to the other students. But those are just 4.
Yes,
I
sir.
mean, like I said, I know we only have a short period of time, but I could tell you there are so many
Yeah.
that they've actually made changes back in their school. One school, and I can't think of I believe it was Eastern Local, wanted to just have clean bathrooms. They just wanted clean bathrooms. And they had surveyed talking about, keep the place clean.
Yeah.
So they hired an extra custodian. And so, it's those kinds of things that kids can see and know.
Yeah.
And sometimes as adults we miss.
Yeah.
One final, I just have to give you this one. Worthington, 2 years ago when we were doing this, had an issue with mental health, and they didn't know why kids would not access the mental health services in Worthington. They, went back and forth. Adults couldn't figure it out. Well, the kids through their survey figured out that the reason why kids didn't go was because the window where kids would have to go to talk to people was clear, and other people could see them in the hallway. Just block the window,
Right.
and they go.
Problem
Yeah.
solved.
Isn't that
Yeah.
crazy?
The kids figured that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Adults didn't figure it out. The kids figured it out through their study. So, I mean, those are 5 or 6 real simple examples of things that they worked on, but they had evidence to back up what they were saying.
So is there a place that other districts can go to read some of this research? I mean, some of the things that you just highlighted right there, if I was a district or a superintendent or a board, I'd say, oh gosh, we can do that. Is there a place, a website that people can go to see the past research?
Yeah, I don't know if we have that up on the Educational Service Center of Central Ohio's research or on their website yet, but we can certainly do that. And I have access to all of the information that these kids have had and their posters and all of that. So yeah, we have it. I just don't know if we have it in that location, but we can make that available.
And one more question. So when the students are asking these questions, students know that they are being asked by students, right?
Yes.
That's where I think that you're probably getting more of some real feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, they tell you they tell you the truth.
Oh, they'll tell you the truth.
Oh,
They'll
yeah.
tell you the truth. Good or bad, they'll tell you the truth.
Right.
Yeah.
So Dr. Bell, you have the Student Leadership Research Collaborative, but you also have the School-Based Youth Participatory Action Research. How are they connected? And I'm understanding that this is a cost-free opportunity.
Cost-free, yeah.
How are they connected? Tell us more about it.
Well, the cost-free piece is because I have great sponsors. The Educational Service Center, Martha Holding Jennings, Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio. I've got State Farm Insurance. I've got a lot of folks that are involved. The Malott Family Foundation. Every person that I go to, it's really kind of funny. When I go to people who are friends of mine who are businesses, and I tell them, as soon as I walk in the door, I say, I don't even need, you don't need to ask. I know this is about kids. What do you need?
Wow.
And they've been very generous with helping us to be able to keep this cost-free. So that part of it has been largely through the Educational Service Center, who's been a large part of this, and those other entities. And I have several partners. Some I'm not naming, but because I can't remember them all. But there are several partners that are involved. I've got the brochure, so you've got all the information there. But the Sky Park piece was really interesting. The year that we had the pandemic and we started this, the U.S. Department of Education, we wrote the grant with Cleveland State. I got with Cleveland State, and we wrote a grant to see how this might work in actual classrooms. So we're doing it as an extracurricular. So how can we take this same objective and actually put it into a classroom? Well, we wrote the grant and all that, and the U.S. Department of Education, I remember when we were doing this, asked about how did you get kids to come to a collaborative when the chronic absence rate in Central Ohio was 46%, but I had 100% attendance in the collaborative, virtual. And it was because the kids could actually talk and use their voice. I tell people often, we tell kids to, when they're small, to talk and do all of that. Then they get to school and we tell them to sit down and shut up. So we wanted them to come in and actually talk and listen to them and make it authentic. So they attended. When they weren't going to online classes in their high schools, they were coming to the collaborative. And so they were attending. So as a result of that, we were able to write the grant, and the U.S. Department of Education, through the Innovative Education Grant, awarded us $4.1 million about a year and a half ago to actually put this in the classrooms. And we've just started that in the fall. We had a design team of students and teachers. Students help design what it looks like. And it's actually taking the objectives from the collaborative and then taking them and now putting them in the classrooms. And so we have about 15 teachers from Northeast Ohio, Central Ohio, and Southeast Ohio. We're going to, this is our first year. We're going to have more, but as we go through it, actually starting to implement this in the classroom. So they're taking a unit, don't have to do anything other than just look at their strategies and see how they can make it authentic so kids can learn. And so that's what the SkyPAR really stands for School-Based Youth Participatory Action Research. And that's really what that's about. So you have the collaborative, which is extracurricular, SkyPAR, which is actually in the classroom. But they're both from the same core,
Yes, sir.
where they're looking at authenticity and being able to get kids to actually look at their numbers. And I can give you one real simple example. My son works for Disney. I took a picture of the Disney payment to get in, what the prices are and all that. I sent that to because I looked at it, because you can get a park hopper, you can get a 1 day, a 3 day, a 5 day, a 7 day, after 4, they're all different prices, they're all over the place. So I took a picture of it, sent it to one of my curriculum folks who had an elementary classroom. They gave it to the elementary classroom and had them figure out what's the best rate.
Oh.
So the elementary class took that and they wanted to get the data, so they looked at it and they started talking about, well, if I take my brother, we take our brother, we got to fly. They started looking at flights, we got to look at hotel, meals. They started putting all of that stuff together. It became authentic for them.
Right.
And it actually became a unit, and the curriculum person told me, he said, this was simple idea. That's the idea of SkyPAR. Taking things that you normally would use in a class and making it authentic. So when kids look at it, they learn, and it's an authentic learning. And that's what that whole piece is about.
Great. That's great. So tell our audience, how do students get involved? If I'm a board member or superintendent watching this right now, where do I go to find out information? Do you have a cohort that's already started? You want to talk to us a little bit about how do people get involved?
Yeah, well, it's, the information is available at the Educational Service Center at Central Ohio's website. Okay. That's our core, working through them. And really, if students want to get, if they want to get involved with this, all they really needed to do would be to contact me and let me know how they want to get involved. It's a Central Ohio project right now, but we've expanded. We had schools from Toledo that came up last spring to see the kids present. So we're looking at how we are able to expand this throughout the entire state. The SkyPAR piece we can expand throughout the entire state because it's virtual. We have virtual meetings. We meet once a month to talk about it. The professional development involved with that. We pay teachers a stipend for being involved to help with them and all of that. So if they're interested in that, you all have my information. I know you can put that on the screen or whatever you need to do. I'm willing to reach out and do that and let folks get involved. We'd love to have more representation, but it's growing each and every day. And I think the more people you have that are represented, the more diverse, the richer it becomes. Yes, and that's really what's happening. When you bring Southeast Ohio students with Columbus City students, with Central Ohio suburban students and urban students, and Northeast Ohio students, which we will have all on campus in November, and you bring all of these kids together and watch them work. Everybody talks about what kids can't do. I'm here to tell you what they can. And what they can do is you give them a chance, they can show you what they can do. And they've shown me what they can do. I was always a believer, but anybody who wasn't, when they see these kids work, they'll be able to see that.
I just love the fact that we're reaching from all over the state of
Yeah.
Ohio,
Right.
Like you pointed out. That's what we love to hear, that all of our board members and all of our districts can get involved in this great work.
And the other part to that, too, is the fact that, this year, working with OSBA, looking at authentic research for our kids after the first year, looking at issues throughout the state. We're going to look at that. We're looking at with the state school board, the Ohio High School Athletic Association, and OSBA, looking at issues that our kids can then actually go back throughout the entire state and get information on and bring it back and give you I call it a biopsy of what you want to know. Yeah. And, why is mental health working or not working in certain places? Well, we can give you that information. And so we have kids who know how to do that.
That's awesome. Well, Dr. Bell, we want to thank you, first of all, for investing and empowering our students to make a difference in our community. Thank you for being with us here today. And we'll make sure that your information gets out to our membership because we want to get as many people involved and many students involved to help support the collaborative effort. I really appreciate the opportunity. You got great leadership here. So looking forward to working with you all.
Please reach out to us so that we can help partner with Dr. Bell and all of those students and all the great work. It's really exciting. That's why we're in public education, or why we're in education,
That's
right?
Exactly it.
So,
All for the students.
all right.
And we'll be right back. Kathy, we are literally days away from Capitol Conference 2023. You can feel the excitement in the air.
You can definitely feel the excitement in the air, the energy. There is a lot going on.
Oh, yeah.
This
Oh,
is a
yeah.
big party that we put on.
Yeah.
So there is such a big shout out to the OSBA team for
Definitely.
the tremendous amount of work that goes into this. I don't know if people realize, but what is it, like 5 days after the conference, we
Oh, yeah.
start getting ready for the next year's
Oh, yeah.
conference. So big shout out to the OSBA team for all of their hard work, and we're really excited to see all of our members in a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's always a great time we're at Capitol Conference, and I must admit that first time I went, it was so intimidating because I had no clue what was going on.
Yeah.
I came down the elevator and I actually live streamed my wife. I said, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm here. I'm here. But we're excited about Capitol
Yes,
Conference,
yes.
and we're pleased to have two of the members of our leading team. They coordinate the entire conference. I know they won't take all the credit for it, but they are the leaders of our conference. We're excited to have Cheryl Ryan, our Director of Board and Management Services, and Jeff Chambers, Director of Communication Services. Thank you both for being here today. Sincerely appreciate the efforts that you all put in making Capitol Conference a great event. But we wanted to give our membership the opportunity to hear about the things that are coming up at this year's Capitol Conference. So Cheryl, I'll start with you. Tell us about some of the concurrent learning sessions that will be happening at this year's conference.
Well, there will be more than 130 learning sessions offered to board members beginning Sunday afternoon and going all the way through Tuesday afternoon. At any given time during the learning session period, board members will have the opportunity to choose from between 8 and 15 different sessions, crossing the gamut of topics from student achievement to mental health to teacher support to curriculum rigor, safety and security, transportation and other operations, and lots of finance topics too.
Wow, great sessions lined up. Well, I'll tell you, me and Kathy are a little biased. We love the Student Achievement Fair.
Right.
So I'm not going to give our reasons. But as a former board member and leading our board management services, why should people spend some time at the Student Achievement Fair?
If you really want to pick me up in your Capitol Conference, you'll make time to go through the Student Achievement Fair. Students from all over the state, everybody from kindergartners through seniors in high school, will come from across the state and jump into a booth with their mentor or teacher and talk about a club or a class or something that they're very proud of in school. Career centers participate, local and traditional districts participate. Everything from guitars to service dogs to cake baking will be featured, and you cannot help but leave the Student Achievement Fair having heard a student performance and talk to some students and understand really why we're all in this game.
Yeah. So right, Cheryl. So
Yeah,
right.
and do take the time to stop by because the kids really like to show off the work that they have been doing. So
And
Jeff,
that's Monday.
that's Monday.
Monday
What time
at Capitol
exactly on
Conference.
Monday?
Begins at 10, isn't that right? 10 to 2 on Monday.
Great.
All right, so if I am going through the conference and I have a question, Jeff, about the services that OSBA offers, is there a location at the conference where specifically I can go to find out those services?
Certainly. As you come down the main escalator, a area for OSBA, we call it our pavilion, in which we'll have staff members scheduled there throughout the conference where they'll help you get the answers. And even if it's not an area that they know of, they may know somebody. If you have a policy question and our two policy specialists aren't there at that time, they'll let you know when they're going to be there. So you can arrange for a time to get back with them and have your question answered. We have that. Actually, it's a great location because it's just right by where registration is. So if those have any issues with their registration or want to register, because we'll take registration all the way till Tuesday afternoon when we end the conference, that will be the place to go. So it's a great spot in terms of our conference, right where the trade show entrance is, right where the ballroom is for the general sessions.
Yeah.
Excellent. So there is an opportunity to last minute registration.
Yes,
Okay.
And especially so in terms of following up on a board election. So if any of the districts out there have candidates who have just been elected and would like to attend the Capitol Conference, it's a great way to get them off on the right foot. They can still register them all the way through. Our registration fees are such that if you've registered 7 people, anyone else from your district can come at no additional charge. So it's really designed to encourage as many people as possible to come from their district to attend the conference. There's something there for just about everybody.
Great.
Great. So Jeff, even as we're talking about that, when people have come to Capitol Conference before, and they're saying, hey, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do that. Can you talk a little bit about our Capitol Conference app that can be handy to them?
Definitely. We have an app that you can download on iPhone, Android phones, iPads. You can pull it up on a laptop over the internet. There's free internet service at the conference, at the convention center. It's a great place to find last-minute information. It has all the details in terms of all the different sessions. It'll have the handouts available for you in the app, as well as information about all the exhibitors, what's going on, what's taking place. Last-minute information will be pushed out through the app. There's all kinds of activities that you can, ways that you can communicate, whether through social media or direct messaging all those who are in attendance. It's probably the best thing you should have on your phone during the conference.
That's great.
I would agree.
That's great. And just know that even though you have the app, our entire OSBA team is there on site. So if you ever have a question, please make sure that you ask one of our team members. So Cheryl, can you talk to the audience a little bit about the annual business meeting, or what we also call the delegate assembly?
Jeff might actually be better served to do that, but the annual business meeting, or sometimes referred to as the delegate assembly, is an opportunity for one board member from each of our member districts to represent his or her district at our delegate assembly. And that is the meeting where every district comes together to talk about issues that have been forwarded through OSBA's platform committee for the discussion and voting by our members whether they should become part of our platform or not. What did I miss?
It's also where they'll have the election for the president-elect nominee. They'll have the vote on that. From time to time, they'll have constitutional and bylaw amendments that help with the running of the association.
Every district should have chosen one member to serve as the delegate, and that delegate can pre-register ahead of conference or register at conference if need be.
So let's make sure that we understand that, because that is one of the challenges that maybe I remember from last conference.
Opportunities.
That's opportunities to grow. That's great. Oh my gosh, I wasn't registered. Is it the treasurer that registers the person? Is it a form I have to fill out? Can you remind everyone how to make sure that they're set?
This year, we've changed things up a bit. We've made it easier for a school district. It all can be done online. Okay. The treasurer is the person that has to enter in the information about the delegate and the alternate delegate. And then all they need to do is just show up at the business meeting. They'll have a QR code on their name badge. They'll scan that and they'll let them in. We are constantly sending out information to school district treasurers who haven't submitted their delegate information yet. So that's up. So we try to get as much as we can. There'll be a spot in registration. If you have a question on whether or not you're the delegate, you can scan your badge and you can see if you're a delegate or not. And you can do that before the business meeting starts on Monday at 2:30.
I also want to remind people, because I had this question the other day, even though you're not a delegate, you can still attend, right? There's just this nice little fancy velvet rope, and you'd be on the other side of it. But you can always come and watch the delegate assembly. And we're really excited this year because we are actually going to have students join us at delegate assembly. We've started a pilot program this year, a student governance initiative, to try to get kids involved and students involved in local governance, and hopefully maybe encourage them to pursue governance or to be on a board or to get involved in politics. And so they will be joining us. We are actually on our fourth module with them. We've talked to them about what our legislative and our lobbyist team does, what our legal team does, what board and management, what a school board member does. So if the project fails, it's mine. If it is a success, it is the team's. Yeah, it's a team win. But we're excited to have those students join us to see us do our work.
Yeah, and it allows them to see governance in action.
Yes.
And to actually see policy put in place in a formalized way. So it's going to be an exciting Capitol Conference overall. Are there any lasting words you'd like to share with the membership to get them excited about what's coming in just a few days?
Well, the only thing that we haven't talked about that I would really like people to know about is we have 2 fantastic general sessions, including the actor Mary Steenburgen and the generational researcher Chuck Underwood. We have some incredibly great spotlight sessions, including our legislative team, Dr. Donna Beagle, who will be talking about student poverty. Chuck Underwood will also do a spotlight session. And certainly school finance is a spotlight session, so great spotlight sessions. We have a ticketed luncheon with motivational speaker Sam Glenn. So lots of great keynote presentations and spotlight sessions for people to also consider.
The reason that we have two of those speakers, the poverty and the generational one, is because some of the team members heard them
Yes.
speaking, and we were like, oh my gosh, we got to get them to Capitol Conference. So we're really excited about those two topics that will be discussed.
Awesome. Jeff, any parting thoughts?
One thing I'd like to mention is on Sunday evening, we have the annual Black Caucus dinner. And they're going to do something a little bit different. This year they'll have a panel of students
Yes.
addressing those in attendance and talking a little bit about their experiences in the classroom and during their lives.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a great conference. Again, I want to thank both of you sincerely for your leadership. Honestly, when we get in Capitol Conference season, I'm looking at you guys and I'm like, wow, they're on top of it.
Yeah.
And you all do a wonderful job. And of course, this is going to be one of the best that we've ever had, and we're looking forward to it. So just thank you for your continued leadership, and thank you to the entire OSBA staff for their work behind Capitol Conference. So Kathy, it's an exciting time here at OSBA. This is going to be your first Capitol Conference.
With my fancy new
This is fancy new title,
CEO,
yeah. So we're
So
looking
once
forward.
again, if it's a fail, yeah.
No, it's gonna be
so
an exciting time.
I'm
It is.
really excited. I'm so excited that I just feel like we're getting a lot more student voice.
Indeed,
In not only our local board activity, but also at the conference. And then you
Yeah.
heard Dr. Bell speak before
Yeah.
earlier in the program. And so I love the fact that the work that we're doing, we are listening to the students that we're serving.
Yeah.
So,
it's going to be a great
yeah.
time.
We look forward to seeing everybody.
Yep.
Yeah,
Awesome.
we're excited. So we'll see you soon.